we breathe, the water we drink. The energy we use have tremendous untapped potential to make us healthier and more productive. And they all converge in the buildings we live and work in. But in a matter of seconds, catastrophes like these can hit the place you call home. Buildings damaged and lives lost. All because of faulty building design and lax construction practices.
For safety of our built environment, there is a national building code that exists in India. The challenge is implementation of this is rather poor because it ends up being either a state or a city-based subject. And there the common answer given is the lack of manpower and resources for urban local bodies, the fire departments, in ensuring not just that one-time safety of the building, but also the periodic inspection of that, which challenges the monitoring of the safety of the building.
In some cases what I have seen, पहले आदमी कंसीव करता है 6 माले की बिल्डिंग, अंडर कंस्ट्रक्शन FSI बढ़ गई लोकेलिटी की, वो बोलता है 6 के ऊपर 3 और चढ़ा दो, गिरेगा नहीं. That is morally and legally, that's a criminal.
Be it issues related to the structure, material used, or facade, what we need is performance-based standards that will help create sustainable, smart, human-centric spaces to live, work, and play in.
I welcome you to India Demands Safety Standards, a multi-pronged initiative by UL that showcases the importance of safety standards across various verticals. The first chapter of this campaign focused on the healthcare sector, where the value of safety and performance of medical devices was discussed. And now we move on to the next chapter, which is safer infrastructure. To open proceedings, I would like to call upon Mr. Suresh Sugubanam, Vice President and Managing Director, UL South Asia.
There are enough studies around us which talk about 300 million population which will move from rural to urban and semi-urban area over the next 15 to 20 years. And these cities which are already bursting on their seams from an infrastructure perspective, these people who are moving in will need homes to live in, they will need offices to work out of, they will need hotels, shopping malls, cinemas, restaurants. All of the stuff that we are talking about is all built environment around. Matter of fact, in urban areas, we spend 80% or more of our time in or around urban infrastructure, which is all built environment. The government of India, with the smart cities concept, has brought in a very important intent in planning and thinking about this in a very logical manner, and we have that opportunity right now. And when we think of a smart city, we have to believe that a smart city will be a safe city, will be a connected city, will be a green city, will be a resilient city. The first point, though, is it has to be safe. And when you look at all of these mishaps, whether it was the bridge in Kolkata or, unfortunately, the fire at the Natural History Museum or in the temple in Kerala, if you look at a common theme, these are all, at some level, man-made infrastructure, and it is up to us to make them safe. It comes down to the building, all ensuring compliance with the National Building Code and making sure that it's not just a one-time compliance, ongoing compliance of everything from a smoke alarm system, the fire system, the structural integrity, how prepared is every one of us who's inhabiting, and ensure that we are disaster ready when the disaster strikes. So what am I looking for? Firstly, for all of us as citizens of India to be aware and then demand safety standards on all of these built environments that we are living in. That's the first. Second, for several of us here who are part of the industry, whether builders, developers, architects, consultants, let's not take safety for granted. It's not just the NOC that you get, right? And it's not the one-time NOC. The buildings that all of us are creating will last beyond just that one-time NOC. And we have to ensure that these buildings are safe for the lifetime of the building. For the government of India, from a central government or a state government, even city or urban local body perspective, when you connect, it's not just about giving that NOC one time. It is about ensuring periodic inspections and ensuring that all of these systems that I talked about work at the time of emergency. And we have to be ready with all of this. Bottom line for us today in India, we all have to be aware of and demand safety standards.
Moving on, I would like to now introduce our chief guest for this evening, who has been at the forefront of the giant strides India has been making in the real estate sector. Please welcome Honorable Union Minister for Urban Development, Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation and Parliamentary Affairs, Shri Venkaiah Naidu.
Creating awareness among the people, demanding safety, providing safety. That's the need of the hour. As we are seeing nature's fury, the calamities that are occurring in various parts of the globe, including ours, and periodical recurrences also. People are constantly living in fear in certain areas, particularly in the national capital itself. We don't know what will happen when. That sort of messages are coming. And secondly, man-made, as rightly mentioned, recent that collapse of the flyover in Calcutta, earlier collapse of flyover in Hyderabad, and then collapse of a multi-storied building in Chennai. All these things are serious reminders to us that we have to take care of the safety. As the built structures are getting taller, the issues relating to the fire and other disaster safety are also assuming greater magnitude. The first and foremost requirement in the current scenario of skyscrapers is to make the design of such buildings safe from disasters. With all these ideas, see, one is there is a greater responsibility cast on architects, engineers, builders, planners, and also the executors of these projects. Secondly, what is happening in our country, rules are made, plans are made, but with regard to execution, there is no proper monitoring of the same. So now we are introducing an element of transparency, paradarshikata, and an element of accountability. The officer in whose area these things happen, he will be basically held responsible. This is the new change we are bringing in. And secondly, if there is a structural defect, the people who have made that structure, they will also be made responsible. Thirdly, unfortunately in India, law of torts is very weak. So there is no fear of law, and I brought this real estate regulation and development bill. The real estate development and regulation bill, regulation is only for development. I told my friends in the real estate sector also, don't worry, it is not going to be a strangulation, it will be a regulation. As a developing nation, we have to take care of all these aspects. And a country which is prone to natural calamities, and where the civic sense or the responsibility is comparatively less, and now it's coming up, we have to be extra careful. And the basic responsibility lies with the planners and with the developers. With an increase in the construction of high-rise buildings, as space is becoming constrained and population is increasing, we have to go vertical. So we have to focus, and also we have to take care of the alarming incidents in various buildings across the country. Safety aspect in commercial, residential, and public spaces has become a growing concern. The government is focusing on that. But the ultimate thing that will make this program successful is creating awareness among the people. I compliment the Network 18 for raising awareness about the challenges the infrastructure industry faces, especially in maintaining high-rise standards and protocols. I convey my best wishes to the conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is said we spend 80 to 90% of our lives in buildings like these. So don't you think it is time we moved away from the design-centric building market to one that also performs well? To achieve this, what we need are performance-based standards that will put buildings to work to protect and enhance the lives of people and help commerce. And to deliberate on that, we have a very special session, Safer Infrastructure for Safer India. Moderating and taking the discussion forward would be Kajori Sen of CNN News 18.
We've talked quite significantly at this moment about what the challenges are. The question that needs to be raised now is, where is the legacy coming from? Where have the failures been? What we need to do to rectify them, and what we're going to do for the future. This is not just a matter of what we do today, it's a matter of what we do for tomorrow. Without further ado, I would like to invite our panelists to join me. Professor Chetan Vaidya, the Director of School and Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. R.K. Mishra, Head, Center for Smart Cities. We've got R.A. Venkatachalam, Vice President, Public Safety of UL. We've got Naveen Raheja, CMD Raheja Developers. And Brajeshwar Singh, former NHAI Chairman, Independent Director, NBCC and L&T. If safety has taken a backseat, which seems to, at least at this point, be the position that is generally taken, Mr. Singh, that raises the question, do we first fill the backlog, or do we then go ahead and look at the future? If we're saying that for 40, 50, 60 years, we've not prioritized something, then are we trying to fill up a backlog?
Yes, we are definitely trying to fill up a backlog. And I think you raised the question about what do we prioritize. We prioritize what we think is trendy. Let's take a small instance, electrical appliances. I can buy an appliance which is rated for its electrical efficiency, its energy efficiency. I can't buy an appliance which guarantees safety. Similarly, when I come to a building, I can buy space in a building which has got an environment green certificate. I wish I could buy space in a building which has got a certificate of safety from the structural point of view. All I have is a municipal piece of paper saying, yes, we inspected it, it complied with the norms. Those inspections can be very perfunctory. I can never buy space where somebody says, yes, I've tested the concrete had the strength, and I had sufficient steel in the concrete. So I think there is one question. In some cases, like environment or greenness, we are pressing ahead at full speed. At safety, we are pressing ahead at a much slower speed. And I think the other aspect is, what about the governance? Because even if you have the standards, do you have people who are going to enforce the standards? The last aspect I'll touch upon is, how professional are our builders? I feel very ashamed that we're a country where civil contractors could be anyone. You don't need a civil engineering degree. And we have, if the builders themselves were a professional group, we could think of having something along the lines of what we have for architects or doctors, where it's self-regulated. But builders could be anybody. They could be somebody with no background in civil construction. And this creates a huge hazard for this completely unregulated, open to entry kind of system we have.
Let me in fact go over now to Mr. Venkatachalam. It's not just up to the builders and the contractors. There's a larger ecosystem which needs to be held responsible. It's people who are looking at whether the fire systems are in place. It's people who are looking at whether the roads are in place. The ecosystem, where are we going to look at the building of that ecosystem? Where has it been historically and where is it now?
I think it boils down to one single point, and that is, there needs to be a regulatory push and there needs to be a consumer demand. Consumer demand comes from awareness. So first, speaking about the regulatory systems, we must ensure, going forward, up to today, what's happened, what's built, what's on the ground, we can't do much. We can inspect and make them compliant to a certain extent. But going forward, we can ensure that what we are building are to good standards. And that good can be defined for India. We can get together as a team. We have the capability to define that in India. For India, we can do that. That's about defining standards, ensuring compliance, obviously, in execution. Equally importantly, when consumers demand, that's when everything falls into place. So I believe both have to happen together, and that can happen. It has happened in other sectors. So it will happen here too.
And I think increasingly consumers are demanding. Urban spaces are places where people are getting increasingly aware of what they need and what they deserve. In that particular context, policies have to evolve accordingly. Professor, where do you think more policies need to come in? What do they specifically need to address?
I will just mention three things very briefly. One is that National Building Code is being revised, and there are more issues of sustainability and safety being put into this. Second is we really need to take a relook at our master plan process. That is something which has become extremely static and not linked to finances of the local body. So if we can build in the safety issue when we give the floor space index or TDR or other benefits, incentive or disincentive, as part of the master plan exercise, there is safety should be included. And all this would get reflected in our municipal building law. I think these are the three things which need to be changed and promoted with safety concerns.
So now that we've figured out where the policy gaps lie, let's talk about the implementation issues. Mr. Raja, let me start with you. When it comes to the implementations of the policies which are already in place, do you feel that there are shortfalls?
I think more than ensuring implementation, it's about your own understanding, taking on responsibilities, and doing things on your own. If people are aware, then implementation is possible. But if you look at the regulation and then inspection, I don't think that can actually ensure, because we know our country very well. So I don't think that can actually ensure what is required to be done. What is more required to be done is awareness, responsibility, and even people taking it up with awareness.
Okay, let's now talk about the future, because really that's what the focus should be on. How do we plan for the future? How do we maximize safety? How do we build India in the image we want it to? And one of the messages that we are getting from the current government is that smart cities are going to be the future. The question that I asked when I heard that, and I'm going to put that question to Mr. Mishra, what's a smart city?
It is not about Wi-Fi's and routers and machines talking to the people and people talking to machines. It's not about that. Smart is a branding, and it's all about livable cities. Given that livable is not a very easy word to pronounce and is not very trendy to say, smart is being said. Our cities today are not livable. So whether it is about, and there are 3-4 aspects of living in a city. You live in your house, you go to your workplace, you have a place where you go for a health checkup, you go for shopping, you go for school. Smart city is a city which, in true sense, anticipates your need and makes your day-to-day life in city more pleasurable and enjoyable. And whatever it needs to be done, of course, you can use technology, you can have public transport, but smart is not about Wi-Fi's and routers alone.
Right. Now that we've got that definition, Mr. Vikrachala, any city planning is upon the government. The government has to give its citizens what they need. But smart cities are a space where the private sector may have a fairly significant role to play. In your opinion, how does that partnership have to look going forward?
As per the scheme rolled out for these smart cities, the private sector or entrepreneurial approach has to be an important ingredient and driving force, in fact. And we believe that the way we have seen the first 20 cities coming out, I've been closely interacting with some of them, starting with the number 1 in ranking, which is Bhubaneswar. What we find is that they are incorporating in their planning significant measures, metrics, ideas, opportunities where safety, sustainability, resilience, these factors are taken into account. And I would like to say that the people who are participating have an interest, because if the investments that they are making, if they have to be producing returns, they have to be safe, sustainable, resilient.
Right. Thank you, all of you, for joining us and participating in an overview of where India is today, where India was, and where India hopefully will be when it comes to being safe and smart.
Now I would like to call on stage Mr. Jagdish V, Head Business Unit, Building Materials UL, to deliver the vote of thanks.
we are all, focused on certifications, We want a certificate, we want a compliance, we want an NOC. But as stakeholders in built environment safety, we need to set a minimum bar in which we need to focus and set our systems right to ensure that people living are safe. Safety is a journey. There is no end to safety. You just can't come and say that I have achieved what safety is there in my building. At UL, we are proud that we should create a need for demand for safety standards and ensure that all stakeholders take an important part in creating a safe building environment. Thank you, everyone.
Next week, we shift our focus to the technology sector, throwing light on providing safe, secure, seamless technology solutions in this era of Internet of Things. And if you have a story, opinion, or suggestion for us, please visit www.safetystandards.com.